All right. And on today's podcast, we have Tomy Parker and Dara Rodda. I did get it. Thanks. I told her before the show I was going to call her Ruda by accident, but I got it right again. So, hey, Tomy is a Marine veteran and keynote speaker at Mission 60, and Dara, his fiance, is a fund development manager at Warrior Rising. And we're here because, really, Tomy, I saw you on LinkedIn, and I was like, man, this dude's got a story to tell. And I reached out, and you're, graceful enough to kind of reach back and say, yeah, man, let's do it. So we linked up and we're here. And so I'll turn to you guys for a minute. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do?
Well, thank you, Dale. As you said, my name is Tomy Parker. I was in the Marine Corps. I got wounded in the Marine Corps and then made some poor choices, which we'll get into later in the podcast. And then found this incredible woman, which rebuilt me. So
awesome.
What do you do?
Boy, that's a hard act to follow. Besides loving this guy, I'm the fund development manager at Warrior Rising, and we help entrepreneurs, or as we call them, vetrepreneurs, create their own businesses and really find purpose when they get back into civilian life.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful and needed stuff because I talk to people about this all the time, right? Like, Marine veteran myself, like, you kind of have it made from the regard, like you don't have to think about much. Like they're going to tell you what to wear, where to be, where to live, how to talk, how to like what your job is. Like they tell you everything. And then when you get out, it's like you got, and certainly there's different things to help you transition out or whatever. But I find ourselves like looking for a mission like right away. I see that with vets often, and I'm sure. So that's awesome. And I guess, what's a little bit, Tomy, about Mission 60?
Mission 60 is a leadership development company. To steal a word from another one of our employees, we forge commanders in the civilian section. And so we take guys that were in the military, and not just guys that were in the military. We have SEALs on our team. We have Green Berets, all sorts of things. So these top tier performers, and then we took scientists and paired them up with them and pulled out the leadership tricks and tips that they used to get through their horrible deployments or their deployments to austere environments. And we make them digestible so other people can understand them and implement them in their lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background. Like, where'd you grow up? What was that like? Where are you from?
Well, Dara and I both actually grew up together. I was born in Wailuku, Hawaii, and then my family decided to come to the middle of nowhere, Montana, or back here, which is actually where my mom's side of the family is from. So it made sense, but I'm still disappointed about it because if you guys could see outside, there's snow, and there's not snow in Hawaii right now. But came back here, grew up in the middle of nowhere. There's more cows than people. I think there's 5,000 people in the entire population of our town, and that could be the rural communities as well. And they might have included chipmunks in there. I don't know where they got the population count, but yeah, we grew up little tiny small town living. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody called you friend. I don't know how to quote this song, but her and Dara and I were actually really good friends in elementary school and middle school. And then in high school,
I dated his best friend. I did throughout high school.
Yeah. I wasn't good enough at that point in time, I guess.
He just needed to age a little bit, like fine wine. That's all. He had a little more aging to do.
But yeah, and then at the end of so through high school, Dara and I actually wrestled together. Like we weren't in the same weight class. I'm a lot bigger than her, but we wrestled on the same team and stuff. Sports and being outdoors is a big part of our community around here. And actually was an even bigger part of Dara's life than mine. But
it is gorgeous here. We live right by Flathead Lake, and we have the Mission Mountains. So it's a great place to come visit in Montana.
Now, as far as like outdoor activities out there, is it like a little bit of everything, like horseback riding, hiking, the works, or is there anything special that you find tourists come there to do most or anything like that?
The lake.
Tourists come here for the lake. We said that our population is 5,000, except between like June through the beginning of August. because then our population's like 20,000. Like there's so many people here. We only have 2 stoplights in our town. There are 2 stoplights total. So our infrastructure isn't designed to have bumper to bumper traffic, and it's horrible in the summertime. But they made
Now,
me come up here.
are you guys like in town limits or like out of town?
We're out of town. We're out of city limits. I can see city limits from my house, but we're out of city limits.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
So growing up, like, so you moved from Hawaii with your mom. Now, did you have a father in your life or a father figure?
Until I was like 6, I had a father figure in my life, I guess. And then I got in a car crash. I was in the car with him, and my mom yelled at him and chased him away. And then I didn't see him again until I was 19. She got remarried though, to a guy that wasn't capable of being a dad at the time, but he tried. And so actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because all of that established interesting fundamentals in my childhood that I didn't believe that love was real. I thought that it was just a word. And that's important for later in the story, because I didn't understand that it was tangible, that it was something you could feel. I thought it was just a word that people said to each other to when they were actually hurting them, to try to make them feel better about hurting them, is honestly the most times I heard it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not trying to say I grew up in a horrible home. I just it was archaic and confused. Like I didn't grow up. I could have been much worse. But it's okay, because if I wouldn't have grown up the way that I did, I wouldn't have survived my time in the military.
Right. Yeah. Which is typical, right? Like it's kind of like its own crucible sometimes, like how we grew up. And certainly something like the Marine Corps, especially when you get to boot camp. And I know you saw it there. So you went to San Diego then, eh?
Yes, I'm lucky enough that I'm from the West Coast area. I'm west of the Mississippi, so I went to San Diego. You must have went
this is how Marines say that, right? I was lucky enough to be on the west side of the Mississippi, right? Yeah, we don't say that over here on the eastern side of the Mississippi.
Well, you must have went to Paris Island and had to deal. I mean, you guys didn't have any mountains or anything, but you had sand fleas and stuff,
Oh yeah, definitely. But right? I mean, what did you see in boot camp? Like, I guess you're jumping around a little bit, like as far as the dynamic of like what you came from and how it prepared you for getting started in the Marine Corps versus like others and so on.
I grew up in a house where conversations were never held at conversational tones. It was instantly 0 to 100, like screaming constantly. And so boot camp, that portion of it was a cakewalk to me. Like if you talk to anybody that was a Marine that went through boot camp, like they will tell you that if one recruit starts to break or falter in any way, that all of a sudden the rest of the drill instructors smell blood, and they will circle them, and only one will be saying words, but the rest are like, just yelling sounds in your ears. And that always, like, I laughed at that because I'd been yelled at growing up. I played sports and everything else, like, and so being yelled at by other grown men didn't bother me at all. It was easy. Like I was disappointed. I actually thought boot camp would be harder, if we're being honest.
Is that right? Yeah. And how big a platoon did you guys run through? And when was this? When did you go to boot camp?
2009. I joined I graduated high school in 2008. And then I joined boot camp February 23rd of 2009. It was my enlistment date.
Right. So about 90 people to start your platoon?
Yeah.
And what'd you end up with?
I don't remember off the top of my head. We didn't lose a whole lot. I went through boot camp right when swine flu went through the U.S., actually. And so it was really weird because if you got sick in boot camp, you went to like a quarantine platoon, and like there was a possibility that they might bring you back. Like it was very interesting, but we graduated with most of our kids. I think at least 2/3 of them from that platoon.
Yeah, I think that's about what we were too. Like I think we started with like 96 and ended with 67 or something like that.
Yeah,
so curious.
It's interesting. A guy that was in my platoon in boot camp got out of, like, ended up being pulled to a different platoon, and then I ran into him after I got injured. I ran into him in the Wounded Warrior Battalion, And he finally made it through. It took him. So for those of you that don't know, Marine Corps boot camp is 3.5 months. Okay. And it took this gentleman like 6 months to make it through boot camp. And then he got hurt in his A school and got out. And I was just like, you never actually got an opportunity to really be in the Marine Corps. Like you, which I'm not downplaying his service. I felt bad for him because I enjoyed my time in service.
Yeah, you learn a lot. And so were you straight out of high school, or when did you end up in?
More or less about a year. I mean, I graduated in May of 2008 and joined February of 2009. Like it wasn't even a full year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dara, how about you? What was growing up around small town Montana like for you?
Well, I loved it because my grandparents lived close to us and are very adventurous. My grandpa was a smoke jumper and then a lead plane pilot for the Forest Service.
He has ice water in his veins. Like I've met some dudes that are
really
good
tough.
Are good at gun fu, and her grandpa makes me feel like a sissy.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of my childhood like back in the mountains in the backcountry, packing in on horses to hunt or flying in to clean up like a really rural backcountry airstrip, So I had a great childhood. It was really, really lovely. Yeah, and then I actually left school a year early. I decided that I was done being in Ronan in high school, and I bought a plane ticket to Germany, and I lived over there as an au pair, and I finished my high school online. So that was good. I traveled a lot. I did a lot of fun things, and then I came back here to go to school, to go to college, and I met somebody and got married and adopted his 4 kids at the age of 18.
Oh, wow.
So hold on, I have to throw this in there. Not only is Dara the most intelligent woman I've ever met in my entire life, but she is the kindest woman I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah, I would say
from my 2 cents. She left high school early, not because she wasn't capable of doing it, but because she was bored of it, because she was too smart to be there. Like I want to throw that out there for everybody listening. Like
I was just ready for adventures a little.
But yeah, I was going to ask so I guess like what was that? So did you end up like did you still end up with your high school diploma, or was it a GED program that you?
Actually, yeah, through Brigham Young University. At the time, they had just released like a correspondence form of finishing high school. So it wasn't through the mail. Luckily, it was online. And I could do it at my own pace, which was really nice because of the time zone situation. So it worked out really slick. I'd even made like a pie chart for my parents and explained that it would be the same amount to pay for my school as they would have given me for lunch money my senior year,
All of this at 17. That's how smart she is. All of this at 17.
So what are your parents saying? Like what's going on in these conversations? Like, okay, yeah, fill me in. Like, what do? You come home and say, "Mom, Dad, I'm done with school and I'm moving to Germany, and here's my business plan." Like,
Yeah, pretty much. Except I was a little strategic about it. Like I had just approached my mom at home with my paperwork I had compiled and, presented it to her, and she was sad, but could tell like I had my mind made up. And then my dad, I waited until he was in his happiest place in the world. He had been in an accident and he had lost all of the toes on his foot. And with his compensation he got from that, he bought a boat for the lake we were talking about called So Much Fun. So we're sitting on So Much Fun, and I had learned how to mix his favorite toddy, and I had been giving him more and more toddies, and then finally asked him, and he said yes that night, and I held him to it.
Wow.
Dangerously intelligent.
She worked him. Jeez. So why Germany? Like what was that all about?
Well, so we had foreign exchange students at our high school our junior year, and I had met people from Germany and Spain and Brazil and just all sorts of places. And it had made me realize how much of a fishbowl I lived in at the time. Like I had traveled a little bit, but but not much, not compared to what I wanted to see. And most of the exchange students that I had gotten to be friends with lived in Germany. And so I chose Germany, and I was able to see 3 of them while I was there. So that was really cool. So I lived in Germany and France, and then visited the UAE while I was over there.
At 17.
No, so
I did turn 18 while I was there.
I understand that, but will you please tell Dale, as well as everybody else that's going to hear this, when you realized that it might not be a good idea to go to the UAE alone?
Yeah, not till I was on the plane, actually, and I looked around. And it's interesting because, and I actually, Tommy's like had panels at different universities and stuff about 9/11 and how it's affected different people. But I didn't even really think about it until I was sitting on the plane, and I look around and I'm the only woman on the plane, and I'm the only one not wearing any kind of head wrap or, and it just then was like bringing all these stereotypical images to my mind of like footage I had seen after 9/11. And so I got super nervous, but I still went. And actually the people there, at the time, it was 2007. They were just really starting to build up Dubai, which is where I spent part of my time. And everyone was very, very nice and welcoming, but it was definitely fascinating to see the different cultural things that happened there.
So what brought you back home? So were you gone for just a year or longer? And what brought you back?
I was gone for a year, and then I came back I wanted to be a travel journalist. And so I got accepted to the University of Montana. I had a grandmother here who was, in her 80s, and I was concerned I wouldn't get to spend much time with her. She died a month before her 100th birthday, so I had plenty of time, but I didn't know that at the time.
She died last year.
Jeez.
Yep. So I came home to go to college.
Right on. Man, you guys
and then fell in love with some kids and never went to college.
Well, I did go to college, but not the tradition. I had been set to go to the University of Montana and then go to Chile for a couple years to finish my studies over there. And instead, I finished a lot of my college online and then tested, at the physical universities, because all of a sudden I had 4 kids, and 3 of them had to be in daycare. And it was it's so expensive when you're trying to make it work like that, but I made it work.
Yeah, daycare is expensive, big time. It's like another mortgage payment per kid, it seems like. But so
they're supposed to be assets, not liabilities.
Oh man, yeah. So Tomy, what made you join the Marine Corps?
I wish I had a cool thing to say here. I hear other people and they're like patriotism and all that. It wasn't like that for me. I had a best friend in high school, not the one she dated, a different one. And his name was Frank Swan. And after high school, he joined the Marine Corps. And I had tried to talk to a Marine Corps recruiter while I was in high school. It was actually during wrestling season. I went and met with him. And he's like, I need you to weigh 203 pounds. How much do you weigh? And I was like, I don't know, 215. And he's like, oh, I can't talk to you then. And I was like, what? Why? He's like, not until you weigh under this weight. I was like, wrestling practice starts today. After that, I'll probably be under the weight. If you want to wait and talk to me, whatever makes you happy. I don't know what plans you have this afternoon, but and he didn't want to hear anything I had to say. And so it put a bad taste in my mouth. So I said, to hell with the military. And I was going to work manual labor the rest of my life because sadly I'd found out that I was a big kid, and to put it bluntly, I had a God complex. I thought that I was better at athletics than I was. I was okay, but I wasn't anything special. But academically, I didn't take school serious. And so when I sent footage and stuff to colleges to try to go, they're like, yeah, we can't give you any scholarships. And unfortunately, I come from a family that doesn't have a whole lot of extra money just sitting around to pay for me to go to college. So I was going to work manual labor. I started working for an uncle, training to be an arborist. He has a tree cutting business. He was a Marine during the Vietnam era. He actually graduated boot camp the day the Camp David peace accords were signed. But and so I was working for him, and then Frank asked me. He's like, "Dude, I'm home on recruiter's assistance. We talked to the recruiter." So I agreed to just to give him to help a bro, and I sat down and I talked to probably the single-handed the most cool recruiter that exists in the Marine Corp. He's another rural Montana boy. And I told him I want to be in the infantry. And he's like, nope, there's no spots available. I was like, okay, bye. He's like, wait a second. We can maybe find a spot. And I was like, okay. And so we ended up finding a spot. And I asked him, I was like, what's the infantry going to be like? Because he was a machine gunner. And he said, you're going to hate it. He's like, you're going to walk past the motor pool where they have trucks. He's like, you'll probably sleep outside on the ground, possibly in the rain, where you can see your barracks room. He's like, they will make you carry things that you don't need to, and they will play silly games with you that they don't need to. He's like, however, when you get to do your job, when you get to pull the trigger, when you get to do infantry stuff, you feel like an action hero. And those moments make up for all the other times. And I have to tell all of you, like, he was 100% true. There were so many stupid times in the Marine Corps that I absolutely hated. But all the other times made up for it. And I got to be so close with those guys and love those guys more than blood family members that I have. And I'm grateful for my time in service. And I guess what we're talking about it from there, I went to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment as a unit I was attached to, or I was in the Marine Corps. And I deployed with them to Sangin, Afghanistan, September 28th of 2010. While in Afghanistan, we were doing counterinsurgency. Actually, I want to back up because Dara and I crossed paths before I went to Afghanistan. This is interesting because this interaction didn't stand out in my mind, but it did in hers. And so I was home on pre-deployment leave, and you were at your oldest son's baseball game.
Yep. Which my oldest adopted son is about the same age as his little brother. So there's a good age difference between all of us.
Now, how close were you guys in school? Like before you left, how close were you guys?
Dara and I are a month apart.
Were you guys like best friends in high school? Like, were you close or like?
No, around this time. So after Dara dated Ben in high school, I have this rule that if you date my friend, you're a dude. And so Dara and I quit being friends, kind of, and not for any other reason than we just drifted apart because our lives went in different directions.
Yeah. So like while we weren't like really bro-ish visiting with each other all the time, though, we were still around each other all the time because we had classes together. And then that same friend we were talking about, his house for our friend group was like the place that you could just go and show up and you'd be welcomed and you could hang out there. Right. So we spent a lot of time like at that house together growing up.
Right. Like the hangout house, right? You were a part of that circle.
Yeah. Yes. We were constantly near each other, but we just weren't really bro-ish. You know what I'm saying? I didn't interact with her a whole lot, but she was always around.
Well, and then I left for a year and then I came back. So this is all after this, right? And so I hadn't seen him in a long time or had any like really deep conversations with him in years, just been around him. And at the time I was more shy than I am now. And I didn't say a lot of times what was on my mind, but I did that day because I ran into him at the baseball game and he was, he was a big guy. What were you, 6'3"? Mm-hmm. I don't know how much he weighed. He was a really big guy. And he was so excited telling me that he was going to be on the front lines, infantry and all this stuff, Like
I said, God complex.
And he's thinking I'm going to be like, oh, you're so cool. And instead I'm like, I love you and do you have a death wish? Like, are you trying to die? Like, it's dangerous over there. Do you know what happens over there? And he completely like blew me off. Like, I remember he like left the area we were talking in so that like I'm still talking and he's walking away, leaving because he was like just completely disregarded it, didn't want to have a conversation about it.
I mean, so Tomy, was it like a lot of
left, but
I mean, Tomy, your mindset, were you just like geared up, ready to go? Because like a lot of infantry guys, man, they just want to get into it, right? I mean, was that you? You were just kind of waiting for this deployment from your time in enlistment?
No, I wouldn't say that. I didn't I didn't focus on the deployment the same way that other people did.
Hmm.
Um, I joined the Marine Corps during wartime, but I never thought that I would actually go to war. Does that make sense?
Really?
Like,
Yeah,
uh,
that's surprising,
like
but yeah.
it wasn't a forefront thought in my mind that like, oh, this is going to happen. Like, I joined the Marine Corps for future possibilities.
In
And
fact, you thought you were going on a mule the first trip, right?
actually, yeah, we trained to go on a MEU for the whole first year I was in 3-5 actually.
Wow.
And for those of you guys that don't know, a MEU is a Marine Expeditionary Unit, that you jump on boats and you go port to port, and you train tactics in other places. You train other militaries and tactics that we use and stuff. But most importantly, this is what all the Marines are focused on: is you get a party in other parts of the world, other ports. And so that's what I trained to do until last second. Our battalion commander got it changed. But then as soon as it got changed, a bunch of guys started looking at like Googling where we were going and trying to pull up all this other data and stuff on it and trying to talk about it. And I refused to listen or research it myself or anything like that. Um, Partially because I watched what it did to some of the other guys.
Mm.
Uh, we had a guy that fell. Notice my air quotes.
Yep.
From the third story balcony a couple months before we deployed. Nobody else ever fell the entire time that I was in 3-5. Nobody else fell from the third story. I have no idea how. There was a guy that his wife somehow ran over both of his feet with the car and broke them. Like, and these were guys that researched this stuff. And so I was like, I don't want to know what's there. Like, you guys. And so I had formulated this belief in my head. And this is important going forward to it, because I had a conversation with my family about it. That deploying, that I would either go to Afghanistan and come back completely fine, okay? Or I would go to Afghanistan and never come back. Like, I literally had conversations with my mom about what I wanted done with my stuff before I deployed. Because when I deployed, I was 21. I was a little kid.
Mm.
And my mom's like, well, what do you want done with your stuff when if you die? And I said, I don't care. I'll be dead. Figure it out. Like, it didn't matter to me. Like,
Right.
it was weird. Like, because I guess I didn't put stock in it. Like, you don't understand the gravity of death, if you will, until you've been close to it. And I had no idea of comprehending what was really coming.
Well,
And
and
so when
naturally nervous and concerned about going?
no,
Not at all. Just ready to go do your
no,
job, but didn't want to look too much into it.
it wasn't even ready to go do my job. Like, I didn't want to go to Afghanistan. Like,
Hmm.
it wasn't like, there's guys that are like, oh, I want to go get some. Like, it wasn't a weird pride thing or anything like that. Like, I wanted to go because my bros were going, because the
Yeah.
dudes I loved were going. And there's no way that they were gonna go get in a fight anywhere. Like, and me not be there. Like, if you don't think that's the thing, if you're down in Gaslamp area, San Diego on a weekend, punch a Marine in the face and see how many other Marines are hidden in the background. Like, it's that mentality that I couldn't leave the bros. Like, it's more so what it was than me actually wanting to go to Afghanistan.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally get it. And I guess this is where you and I can relate a little bit, because like both coming from small towns, but you get in there and you fall in love with these guys. Like, my best friends today are my Marine brothers, right? Like, that the ones I talk to more regular than the guys I grew up with. I talk to these guys often, and even if it's not often, like when we do talk, we pick up right where we left. Right, if there's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure you do, but it's just like those are the guys. Like, we grew together, right? I mean, 18, 19 years old, we just grew together over that time.
Well, mutual hardship makes the bond tighter. Like, that's
Yep.
one thing that you hear all the time. And so these are guys, like, I want to preface this. The level of trust that you have with the people you serve with is crazy. There were guys that I was in the Marine Corps with that I didn't like as people, that I just didn't get along with. They rubbed me the wrong way. They're different people than I was. It was what it was. But these same guys that I didn't like, if I had to enter into a room to clear a room or something like that, I knew that they would do exactly what they had to make sure that everybody that entered the room was able to still leave the room.
Yeah.
And it's weird because after the military, I looked for that in everybody else in the civilian world, and it's not there.
Yes, right. I mean, and it's, I don't know. I tell people today, like, I don't know what you think about this, but it seems like, we're conditioned for that camaraderie, and we're looking for it. But sometimes, like, people not having experienced that, they're so, and this is a wrong choice of word. I don't have a great vocabulary like University of Montana Dara, but but it's like they're not self-centered, but they're not concerned for others like the way our camaraderie was, if you understand what I'm saying, right? Like, it's just, you have a hard time finding it outside of family, I guess, am I making sense there?
Oh, completely. It's actually to show this. I'm going to tell this story. We're going to move forward, and I'm going to tell the story of me getting injured and blown up, because I always get asked by people if I thought that I was going to die when I got blown up, and I never did. I trusted everybody around me was capable of making sure I was okay. And so I want to preface this. This is kind of gory. I apologize. This is how I remember it from when the IED detonated to when I got on the helicopter. We were sent out to do to go blow up some IEDs for a farmer because the Taliban buries IEDs wherever they want to, that they think will directly hinder the U.S.'s movement or ability to perform. And I don't know or think that they care about the local populace. And so that's
Tommy,
what we did.
How long were you there at this point?
4.5 months. This was December 11th of 2010. The date was 12/11/10.
Okay.
And I didn't think that it was good intel. It was a weird place. I didn't want to go out there. We were going into a T intersection, but everything ended up being okay. We went out there, we detonated the IEDs in place, and then we were headed back. And we walked a road out that cars drove on so we could walk the road back, because we thought that they didn't want to blow themselves up, which is usually a pretty safe bet. And so we get off of the road to where our patrol base can see us, and we're following the same cleared path that we walked in on, because theoretically, the Taliban shouldn't have been able to backlay an IED because our post should have been watching them. We get slightly off of the road, not very far, and we take a couple pop shots. We all halt to where we are and try to figure out where the shots come from so we can wait for follow-on contact. I am now the last guy out of 20. We've taken so many casualties that the team that I was in was restructured and broken up and put in different places. And so I was the rear guy. And our squad leader says that we should keep moving because it is harder to find IEDs in the dark, and it would soon be dark. It was about 4:30, 5 p.m. It was getting dusk. And so we keep moving. Me and the other guy in front of me decide to leapfrog to hold rear security, meaning that one guy would stay set and another guy would move forward. Once he was set, the other guy would then come over him in a leapfrog. We did this for a little while and made, I don't know, 20, 50 feet. I'm not sure on that. And my ears felt funny all of a sudden. For those of you that have listened to this or that are listening to this that have played football or something like that, or possibly just had an older sibling slap your ears really hard, that's what happened. I had an overwhelming pressure in my ears. I was floating. I felt weightless. And I don't know if this part's true or not, but this is what I remember. Everything was moving really, really slow. Like rocks, like everything. Like it was almost like I stalled in the air, if you will. Not for very long. And then I slammed immediately back into the ground in the crater that was formed by the IED. And this is where it gets gory. I looked down at my left leg, and it looks like a massive hamburger. Looked like they'd put my leg through a meat grinder, and I could see exposed tendons and stuff. Looked like little rubber bands. And then on my right leg, I could see exposed bone, which I now assume is my tibia and fibia. I'm not sure. My foot is gone, and I can't feel anything at the time. Um, and a figure comes running through the dust, and it's our corpsman, and he's trying to get me to lay down because I was sitting upright, and I refused to lay down. And then he grabbed me by my chest and forced me onto my back. From there, they gave me morphine. And for those of you that don't know, I'm technically a triple amputee, so they shouldn't have given me morphine because I could have died. But they gave me morphine, and it brought me down just enough to where I felt pain. So your brain can only has so many neural pathways to acknowledge that pain exists, and it can only process so many of them at a time. And without the morphine, my pain receptors were in a traffic jam. After the morphine, I could feel everything. It felt like my bones had been shattered, exploding outwards, and then what was left had been lit on fire.
Now, is that because you're a triple amputee? Like, that's not what was supposed to happen? Like, or
no, it's supposed to bring the pain down enough to where it's tolerable, but it actually just made me hurt. And I don't know if that's a common thing or whatever, but it calmed me down enough to where I felt my pain more so than anything. And then, after they did that, they put in an IV and started giving me fluids, and they wrapped a tourniquet around my right leg and stuffed it full of combat gauze, which combat gauze is a gauze that has a coagulation agent inside of it to help so the blood will stop spilling. They used to have a thing called quick clot, which any old heads that are listening to this, that stuff's horrible and it burns skin, so they had to change it. Did you have quick clot when you were in? Is that what they used in your IFAC? It was like a weird powder.
I think so, to be honest with you. I don't recall.
It ended up doing a lot of damage. They'd have to like cut back the burn after it was done. It saved lives, but they had to change it. And then so on my left leg, while this is going on, they put a tourniquet on my left leg and it put a second one on. And the corpsman says, I can't get it to quit bleeding. I can't get it to quit bleeding. And then that's when the stretcher arrived. He was a corporal at the time. Corporal Finney sprinted it up the hill, didn't wait for a route to be cleared. And they put me on the stretcher. And before they put me on the stretcher, I picked up my left hand, and it was the first time I'd actually looked at it. And so I didn't feel any pain or anything with it. And so it's hard to tell in the camera, but this is all scar tissue. It had blown my pinky and ring finger off of my left hand. And then my middle finger and index finger were detached but held on by the tendons. And then my thumb was broken and twisted backwards. And that was because I was left-handed and I was holding my gun. My thumb was behind the gun and the rest of the fingers were in front of the gun where the blast pushed up. So they get me put onto the stretcher and they're starting to pack me down. And I have a conversation with Tommaso and I ask him, I'm like, dude, are my legs still there? Like, I could feel them. And he says, no, bro, they're gone. And then I asked him the most important question, because anybody I treated in Afghanistan asked me this question as well. And so I was like, bro, is my stuff there? And he goes, what? I was like, man, the stuff. He says, I didn't check. So I have him check. The stuff is there. I did take some injury to I have half one testicle and like 5% of the other one. But they were carrying me down the hill, and the corpsman was trying to carry the IV bag. So I took it from him, and I was holding it. And as we were going down the side hill, I had to drop the IV bag to hold on to the stretcher, and it pulled the IV out of my arm. They get me down to the truck, and then when I get into the truck is when it gets hazy. I don't really remember a whole lot of it. I do remember this part. The corpsman told me that I couldn't take a nap. I would die, and I told him that he was wrong. I was tired. I just needed to take a nap, and I'd be okay. And he told me that no, if I did nap, I would in fact die. So anytime that my eyes closed, I was violently and viciously slapped awake until we got to the helicopter. There's a part that I learned that I was going to include in the story later. But the guy Finney that carried this stretcher, told me something that I don't remember from the story at all. He said that when they got me to the truck, they asked me how I was doing. And apparently I responded with thumbs up all day, bro. I don't remember saying that. I don't know what else I did, but he told me that. He told me that actually after I got sober, but we'll get into that later. They got me to the helicopter. They got me put on the helicopter, and then they snowed me. For those of you that don't know, they put you in a medical coma to try to transport you. It makes it easier for you to transport. But before that, this is the only time in the entire evolution of my injury that I thought I would die. I was on the helicopter and they gave me another IV, and then they put propofol in my IV to put me to sleep. Propofol is acidic. You can feel it burn through your veins. And I felt it creep up my veins and burn up my arm, up into my shoulder, and up into my neck. And my final thought that I had wasn't this how another Marine died? And that was the thought that I had as I went to sleep. I woke up 3 days later in Bethesda, Maryland, with my mom and my uncle standing at the foot of my bed. And I thought I was still in Afghanistan. And I told them, I was like, you guys, you can't be here. I don't know how you got here. It's not safe. And they put me back to sleep. And I don't know if I woke up later that day or the next morning. But when I woke up, I didn't remember losing my legs, to be entirely honest, at first. It took me, I was on ketamine, and adverse reaction to ketamine can be hallucinations. And so it took me the 5 days I was on ketamine. I thought I still had legs. I kept asking my mom to pick my foot up off of the floor that we were in because the carpet was tickling it, even though we were in a hotel room with tile. I don't even think I've ever been in a hospital room with tile. I don't even think I've been in a hospital room with carpet, but I thought carpet was tickling my feet. It was weird. And when my mom came over, actually, let me back up. At first, the Marine Corps told my mom, they got a hold of her and told her that my injuries were different than what she found out. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, she was told different injuries than what I actually have. And she was able to make it to Maryland in the same amount of time that it took me to get from Afghanistan to Maryland. She actually saw me get off of the ambulance and be brought into the hospital.
So, and how was she through all this?
I have to figure out how I want to say it correctly. I'm very grateful that my mom did what she did to help me. My mom dropped everything that she had back here in Montana and spent 18 months with me trying to help me get my life figured out. She actually, even in that time, was very diligent in making sure that I didn't become addicted to opiates and a bunch of other things. Like, did all of these things to try to make sure that I was still going to be okay. Which I'm very grateful for that. Another thing that she did was, and my injury on its own did, was brought attention to me from the local community where we're at. As we said, I live in a small community. And so when I came back home the very first time, because sadly, when I got injured, it reminded my little sleepy community that America was still at war. And I was highlighted. I was raised far above what I feel that I should have been and called a hero. I struggled with that for a long time.
Why is that?
Why did I struggle with being called a hero?
Yeah.
Because I'm not special. I got the opportunity to walk with giants and serve with heroes, but me, myself, I'm just a dude that stepped in the wrong place. Right. And what you see is the consequence of my misplaced step. And so to elevate me or highlight me is unnecessary. I went, I did, I came back. Cool. Like, there's one thing I can tell you, that bomb will never hurt anybody else. Like, I killed that thing, but like, that doesn't make me a hero, man. But here's what the other thing that it caused at the time. internally with me is, so all of these people, hold on, I have to back up. When I came home the very first time, they held a fundraiser for me locally. And even before that, they had a gathering at the airport for me. And when I came out of the gate for the airport, the entire lobby was full of people and news cameras and all of this stuff. And then we got into the car that was gonna drive me to the hotel to stay in Polson. And then 500 cars followed the procession back, the hour drive back. Like, it was in February, and there were people lined alongside the road out in the cold, waving signs, and like all of this stuff that I'm grateful that they did, but I don't know that I needed to be elevated that high. And then they held a fundraiser the next day, and something like 2,200 people or maybe more, I don't know, came and ate spaghetti and said hi to me and everything. And so many people told me I was an inspiration and how nothing had changed and how incredible it was that I could go through that and be the same dude and this and that. And it caused me to fracture myself, or to not caused me, because that would give them the power. It made me believe that I needed to maintain a persona, a public persona, if you will, that showed that I was lighthearted, that I didn't really care about my injury, that all these things. But it caused me to separate into two people, and it caused me to become. It created a facade.
Because what was really going on?
What was really going on is I was struggling, but I wouldn't tell anybody that I was struggling. I was always happy. In fact, in this time that I'm speaking of, you came and hung out with me. Was the first time we hung out since I got injured, right?
Yeah, I came and visited you at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
After the fundraiser was over, so I could actually get to talk to the baby celebrity over.
Now, was that the first time like that you got to talk to him? Like, since you were talking about he walked away from you at the wherever the gathering where you were trying to ask him if he had a death wish, blah blah blah. Was this the next time you got to see him? After that.
That was the first time that I got to see him face to face since his injury. Yeah. Yep. So I had been, at the time I was going to school online, like we were talking about, and was home with a lot of kids when that happened. And it was really, really moving, though, to see, like he said, like people had just forgotten that we were at war still. And it really just brought the war like right to our house, it felt like, or right to our community. And yeah, it was very moving to see people rallying around him. And I was super interested to see how he would be. And when I met up with him, he, was cracking jokes, periodically being his moody self that I remembered from high school. So he seemed the same and different at the same time, but he's still he has a really good sense of humor. It can be pretty dark at sometimes, which I know is a common military thing. But my family jokes around a lot too. So I was very, comfortable with it. And yeah, it was just good to see him in person, because I had felt like he was not okay, even though I knew he was home and stuff. I felt like he was not okay till I got to spend some time with him. And I don't think I left there thinking oh, everything's rainbows and sunshine. I knew he was going through things, but he had put on a really good facade for it was super interesting watching him interact with other people in the bowling alley, which his mom and stepdad own the bowling alley. So he grew up there, spent a lot of time there. Yeah. And it was just, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying there. It was just something that I'd thought about him a lot. I know I wasn't the only one in our community that, everybody changed their Facebook profiles, and all the signs on all the businesses said, "We're praying for Tomy." And, looking back on it now, I think we were trying to be very as supportive as we could with him, but I don't think it was what he needed.
And what do you say? Because I'm curious to this, because obviously, Tommy's talking about he didn't. He appreciated what everyone was doing, but he didn't look at himself as a hero. Like, how do you feel when he says that? Like, do you like, is this a debate that you guys have had? Like, because man, I got to say, right? Like, we talk about sacrifice, right? Like, take the hero part out of it. I think like when you volunteer and to go fight for our country and such a sacrifice is made, like that's got to be honored. Like that's, whether we call you hero or not, whether you appreciate it or not, like we honor your sacrifice. Yeah, if that makes sense. Is this something that you've talked about?
Yeah, I've talked about it with a lot of people. In fact, the guy that carried this stretcher, Finney, is who got me to change my mind on it. I'm still very close with him. I actually plan to have him be my best man at my wedding because I'm marrying a woman that saved my life. So it's only fair to have the man that helped save my life be my best man. But so you said signed and joined to go fight for our country. That's not why I joined. And so me
But
going to
you've joined knowing that was a risk. We all do, right? Like
no,
we
no, I'm being dead serious. That was not in my mind. And people don't understand that, but that was not in my mind. I joined with the intent of the experience that I could glean from the Marine Corps to do something bigger than I ever had. And so when I got told I was going to Afghanistan, it fell under the scope of my job title and what was expected of me. And so I did it. And so to elevate me for something you expected, okay, let me flip this around. Like, do you say thank you when and it can be a whatchamacallit, a rhetorical question, but do you say thank you every time that a waitress refills your drink?
Yes.
Okay, some people don't because it's under their job specification, okay? That's what you're supposed to do. And so to thank me for what fell under the title of my job didn't make sense to me. And then I have to go deeper with this. Like, Afghanistan isn't a war that it wasn't an imminent threat to me necessarily like World War I and World War II. I'm not trying to downplay what happened on September 11th. That was very sad. However, people say that I went and protected their freedoms. Like, from my perspective, from a guy that was there, like I didn't protect any freedom in America. And so to elevate me like to the same status of the people that went and fought against the Nazis or anything like that, like I'm not that dude.
And how did did you say Finley? Finley is your best
Finney,
man?
Finney.
Finney. Now, how you said Finney changed your mind on that? Like he changed your mind to that perspective, or you have a different
No,
perspective now?
to a different
No.
perspective. He said one statement, okay? Tell me a time in history when a hero told other people that's what they were.
Right.
Heroes don't get to decide that that's what they are. If other people want to elevate you to a heroic status because of something you did that you might not feel is important, that's fine. Allow them to do so. Allow them to celebrate your win.
Yeah, look, man, I appreciate your humility for sure. I mean, but I'll still honor your sacrifice for your service, and I get it. Like, I get you, man. You're talking to a guy. I don't even have my VA card, man. Like, I don't walk around going, look at me, I'm a Marine. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think you and I are on the same page with that, right? Like, I'm not walking around and I know some of my friends do this, so don't take offense to this, but some guys go and they go, do you have a veteran discount? Man, I would never do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't join the Marines to get veteran discounts. So I feel you. I understand where you're trying to go, but at the same time, you made a sacrifice. We all do, when we sign up, because I'd say, what people should respect about people who volunteer for the military, because look, yeah, I'll give it. I got free college. I got all the benefits of the military. But I'll say what people need to know about even joining the U.S. Armed Forces is we do sacrifice our freedoms. Where do we start this, right? We're told where to go, what to wear, where to live, right? Like and we're held to the UCMJ, so we're held at a different standard. So even at its base level, we make sacrifices. Now, are we compensated and all that? Yes, but it is to volunteer for service is a sacrifice. And which could go all the way up through to someone's life, which sounds like you have brothers that did. So I feel like here or not, I'll be with you on there, but I think we should always be honoring the sacrifice, because it's not just the military members, but their families and their close ones who also, I'm sure, as you know, like feel the pain of the circumstances, whether it's as simple as them being gone on enlistment or then deployment or, injury or worse. Right. Like, there is a lot to honor, I think, in, that. So I still honor you, with regard
No,
to that, because I think that's important,
I agree. I honored other veterans and service members' sacrifices. I'm very big on especially Vietnam and like before. I have to admit that if I see veterans from my generation wearing their hats and their other stuff like that, I will not come thank you. I'm sorry. I don't know what it is about, like, and I'm not downplaying your service, but I'm more inclined to thank older generations for their service. And their sacrifice. I think young generations too, if their sacrifice is obvious. I don't know. It's situation to situation, but myself, I personally don't feel that I should be held to put on a plateau for that, or not a plateau. But you get what I'm saying.
pedestal.
Because a pedestal, yeah, because that is no longer who I am. Like, that's part of my identity, but it's not my whole identity anymore. I want to. There's a gentleman. I can't think of his last name now. He's in one of the people that works for Mission 60. He's actually in the book behind me, Deliberate Discomfort. But he talks about he was sitting in a helicopter, and he looked around. And he's like, "Wow, this is a can of whoop ass, if you will." And he's like, I refuse to have this be my peak, to have this be the coolest I ever was. And so if people are routinely highlighting how cool I used to be, then it's, I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, look, yeah. The saying I love to use there is the used to be's don't make no honey, right? I used to be a Marine. I used to this, I used to that. I was the, all-star wrestler in high school. I'll go wrestling with you guys, right? It's like, yeah, what are you doing now, man? You're 44. Like, what are you doing? Like, and so yeah, I'm with you, man. We got to keep grinding. Like, we can't live our glory days. We got to keep finding that next level.
You have to continuously grow, as I'll highlight in the next part of my story. Like, after I got injured, I chose to stagnate. I wasn't trying to go anywhere. I wasn't trying to achieve anything. And because of it, I allowed myself to slip into a hell, I guess, if you will, that I manufactured, that I grew bigger. And so after my mom moved back to Montana, I got hurt, or at least I thought I did. And I got put back on pain pills, started taking more than I was supposed to. And to quote a movie, or not a movie, but a song, he says, painkillers don't work when the pain that you're killing is yourself. And I didn't understand that at the time. And my addiction grew more and more and more. And then November 26th of 2012, I got out of the Marine Corp. And I was supposed to move from Montana back to, or from San Diego back to Montana. And I was naive and thought that I could quit doing drugs when I came back. That I didn't have. I apologize, my throat itches. That I didn't have the network in Montana to get the pills that I did in California. Because by this time, the pills that I was using, I wasn't being prescribed. I was being prescribed some of them, but my appetite was so ferocious that it wasn't enough. And so I was buying them from the street. And
you talked about 18 months since your industry, just trying to piece the timeline together. Did you go from Walter Reed to San Diego for 18 months? Is that?
Yeah, so 18 months was the total time. I was in Walter Reed for 2 months, or 9 weeks, somewhere around there. I had one surgery every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 7 weeks. And then I had a week of no surgeries, and then they moved me to San Diego, where I was still inpatient briefly for I think another week. And then after that, I went home. And then for the next 12 months, 13 months, I learned to try to walk on my prosthetics and everything. And my mom was still there. And then when my mom left is when this drug addiction started, because her system to make sure that I wasn't abusing them was no longer in place. So I have to highlight that, because my mom did a tremendous amount of work trying to make sure this didn't happen. And then, so I got addicted to pain pills. I moved back to Montana thinking I could quit. And, but I wasn't actually planning to quit. Like I don't think I was at the time. And the problem was nobody knew that I did drugs, or very few people did. But not people that I thought would care or hold it against me. And so there was a facade. I kept the two separate. Everybody thought that I was sober and doing good and all this stuff, but really I was just really, really high all the time.
And is this during, like, while you're being celebrated, like we talked about
Yeah,
earlier? Like,
yeah.
yeah, okay,
I'm
all right.
still being celebrated and held to high esteem. Like I can't when I come back to Montana, I can't go to Walmart without people cornering me. How you doing? It's good to see you. Like you're such a hero. All like I want to point this out. All while I'm very high and nobody knows that I'm abusing these pain pills at the time. This goes on further and further. And to point out some of the highlight things to show how I was being elevated. They built an addition on my mom's house that I could stay in until I got a home from Homes for Our Troops, which was donated to me. I was still working as a public speaker at the time. And I was actually trying to work for Mission 60 at the time. I had done a couple of events for them. But then my drug addiction became more aware to people. I couldn't control it anymore, or wasn't able to, or the facade I thought I had put in place wasn't working. And people started pulling away from me. And then when people started pulling away, I started pulling away from more people, because I found out that if you're not close to people, then they can't tell you that they don't agree with what you're doing. And so the lady that I was dating at the time, she was actually my fiancé, decided she was done doing drugs and left. And so I decided that I should try to be done doing drugs so I could have my old life back to me. And I went through treatment, and I tried to talk to her right after treatment and said, hey, can we be a thing again? Or she told me no, that chapter in our life is closed, and I'm sorry, good luck. And so I didn't care after that. I didn't continue to pursue sobriety, but that caused a shift. So before that, I tried to hide that I was an addict. I didn't let anybody know. But after that, after I went to treatment the first time, I let everybody know that I was an addict, but not in a positive way, not in a way that you hear somebody that went through AA or NA, somebody that's in recovery uses it, because they show it as something that they have overcame. I used it as a badge of permission to act however I wanted to. Like I would just be like, well, that's how junkies act. Like I do, I'm doing junky things, because it stole power from other people around me that were trying to judge me off of my junkiness, if you will. And then so after she left, I decided that I was going to take a headfirst dive off a real tall cliff and search for rock bottom. And let me tell you, I said this to my mom, because periodically she would call me and tell me that she wanted the old Tommy back. She wanted her son back. And that she just wanted me to hit rock bottom so I could find my way up from there. And let me tell you, rock bottom has a basement, and that basement has a sub basement, and that one has another basement. You as the individual are the person that decides what your rock bottom is. So don't wait for that absolute worst case scenario for you to, it hasn't, you feel like you're still winning the game, so you keep playing. Let me tell you, I've played this game long ways, and you never win. And then so from there, my house was raided the very first time, December 11th of 2016.
This is your mom's house, or
my house? My house I was given by Homes for Our Troops. And it was raided because gentlemen that I was in the Marine Corp with came up there to try to do an intervention. Because
they came from all over the nation to try to talk to him about it.
Try to help me. A guy that I treated 4 days before I got injured, Finney that carried the stretcher, other guys that I was in the Marine Corps with, they showed up. They came in the house, and so I want to point this out. Like, these are all guys that I told you earlier in this podcast that I loved, that I would have done anything for in Afghanistan or what we were in. But they came to my house to call me on my stuff. And I had track marks up and down my arms. For those of you that don't know, track marks are bruises from injection sites that were done incorrectly, and it leaves a bruise. It is usually a very telltale sign of a junkie, especially a new junkie, because at this point in time, I was using needles, and I wasn't using pain pills anymore. I was now addicted to heroin and methamphetamine. And they came up and they had prepared words, and they were all very kind, and they just wanted me to be better. And I made fun of them, and I cracked jokes while they were trying to be heartfelt. And I told some of them, I don't even know why you came here. We're not even friends. I don't even like you. I also want to point out that this was the first time that I met my niece. I have two nieces. The first time I met my niece, and I didn't see her again for 2 years after this. So they did all this, and the police came in too, and tried to get me to do some things and that I didn't agree to. And then I got sent to treatment in Sheridan, Wyoming.
This is the second time.
No, this is the first. This is the second treatment. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yep.
I got sent to treatment there. I left that treatment against medical advisement. And that started a horrible cycle of I really didn't care at all about anything anymore. I was going to operate how I wanted to operate, and it didn't matter. I got sent to, so between the first treatment and now, I've been to 9 treatments. I also, my house got raided another time, March 11th of 2017. This was actually the third raid, but this is a raid that I actually caught a charge from. I got possession of heroin, or possession of narcotics. And I got incarcerated. And let me tell you, the first time that I went to jail, it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, because I didn't know if I could survive in jail, in a wheelchair. Like, my brain was spun up, all this other stuff. I had no idea if I could make it. But then I found out I could, which was even more terrifying, because I quit caring that I was going to jail. And so all this that I just covered briefly, because I'm trying to get to the most important part of my drug addiction story. This is about a 10-year period where from between when I started my pain pills to blossoming all the way to becoming a professional drug addict and doing methamphetamine. And I threw professional in there to try to make lighthearted of it. I made poor choices. Like, drug addiction isn't something you should laugh at. But if you're a person that's been through it, you tend to laugh at it because you realize how dumb you were. But so during all this time, I come out of jail the very first time, it was September 16th. And my birthday is September 18th. They released me from jail September 16th. And I bet that all of you can guess what I did on my birthday, because I thought that I deserved it. I relapsed.
You were in for how long? How long were you in jail?
That time I was in from February to September. Total, I was in 18 months, but that time was February to September.
So you're getting out after a 6-month stint-ish.
Yeah.
6 or 7.
Yeah. Immediately relapsed. Didn't take any time, got right down to it. But something else very cool happened that day that I didn't know was going to steer me a different direction over time. I ran into Dara, actually. Tell your part of this story.
Well, that day, my oldest son had to have surgery in Missoula. And so he had complications during the surgery. They were short-staffed at the hospital. So I had been awake literally all night, wiping up blood. He was coughing up blood all night. So, I was really not feeling good the next day. I felt like I'd been up all night doing something like that, and that I didn't look my best. But anyway, I ran into him at the gas station.
I want to point out real quick.
On my way home.
She felt that she didn't look good. She looked like an absolute angel to me. And so I felt the need, like I had to talk to her. And I did. I hollered out the window. I think I said, "What's up?" or "Hey, Dara," or something. I honestly expected her to just like wave and walk away. But she came over the window and talked to me.
But Dara, had you, like, so this is at the 10 years of drug use, blah, blah. Like, did you know what was going on with him? Were you a part of any of the interventions or anything like that? Like, what did you know about what was going on with him at this point?
So probably a year prior to that is when I finally realized, like, I didn't know for the first, 8-9 years what was going on. But then he had asked if he could borrow money, and I was like, yeah, that's not whatever, childhood friend. And so I, like, when I met up with him though and looked into his eyes, So Tomy, like, he talks with his hands, he's loud, he cracks a lot of jokes, and his eyes were just black and dead, and there was no facial expressions at all. Like, it was not my Tomy that, like, I had grown up with when I met up with him that year ago to lend him some money. And so so I had known what was going on. And so then I see him and I go visit with him, and I look in his eyes this time, and he's trying to be animated and stuff, but his eyes are still black. And normally he has like this beautiful honey colored, he's frowning right now. He's got gorgeous eyes though, like gorgeous brown eyes. But so I knew that, he was most likely high, and meth is a huge problem. We live on the Flathead Indian Reservation, and I swear all the reservations are just targeted more for drug distribution too. So, and that's actually a reason that I have 4 adopted kids. Like, meth has played a big part just in our being prevalent in our community and in affecting the people that we love in our community. So when I met up with him, like, I could tell he was high, but he was super chatty, super chatty. And the first question he asked is,
hold on, I want to ask it. So I'm like, hi, how are you? And immediately, to be respectful, so I know
to be respectful.
So
yes.
She did air quotes in case you guys don't ever see video footage of this. So I was like, hey, how's your husband? How's the kids? Because I feel that is respectful. That is a polite thing to do.
His eyes didn't look polite. Throw it out there.
But and so she says that she had gotten a divorce. And I tell her, I'm sorry to hear that. And I thought that I was extremely genuine and sincere in my verbiage and everything that I said. Was I?
It kind of was like a wolf sheep situation, is what it felt like.
I love that analogy, right? Because as a Marine, I can say I've seen Marines with that kind of tone and that sly fox. I know exactly what Dara's describing here.
So he invited me out for coffee.
Hold on, I have to throw this out there. I hate coffee. I've never drank coffee in my entire life. Coffee tastes like angry earwax. But if it got me the opportunity to sit across the table from her and maybe bend her ear a little bit, I'll choke down some coffee. And she responded very quickly, very, very charming, very warmly. Yeah, we'll go to coffee. She ignored me for 3 months. I hit her up all the time trying to go to coffee.
A couple times.
Okay, a couple times.
Because why, Dara? What were you thinking? What was going on?
What was going on? Well, I had just gotten divorced and and then I had a biological son during that time. So trying to be a single mom to 5 kids, and had started my other position with a nonprofit here locally. And so I was really busy doing that and didn't think it would be a good idea to go have coffee with someone who's still doing meth. Yeah. Pretty much.
She was right, guys. If anybody that's doing meth invites you out for coffee, don't go. It's not a good life.
Well, let me say too, like, if I would have felt like it would have just been a friend request, yes, but you guys, he was eyeing me like he was that wolf, and I was like the plumpest sheep he had ever seen in his life. So that is why I kept holding him off for a while.
Makes me happy to use plump. But yeah, so she ignored me, which is honestly probably best, because over these next months, I kept going to jail every 2 weeks for 2 weeks, until finally my probation officer got tired of me doing that, and she said, "I think I'm going to send you to treatment, Tomy." And I was like, "Yeah, you should. I have a problem. I'm a drug addict." I want to point out that you could tell by my tone of voice when I said that I had no intention of changing going to treatment. I just didn't want to be in jail, because in drug treatment, I can have Copenhagen and my cell phone and way more freedom. So yeah, I have a problem. Send me somewhere. And she sent me back to the Helena VA Drug Treatment Center, which is where I went the first time. I've been there several times, actually. In fact, they weren't even sure that they wanted to let me back in, because they didn't know if I would take the treatment program serious this time, because it didn't seem like I had any of the other times. I really don't think that I would have, to be entirely honest, had I not been sitting in my room at the treatment center, and Dara posted on Snapchat, of all things, a picture of a dinner that she had cooked. I'm a lot thinner now, but I am still a fat kid at heart, and I love food. She posted some steak, some asparagus, some stuff, and I was like, whoa, you can cook too? Like, what? And we started talking. But I did something with her that I hadn't done with anybody else when I started talking to them. I told her absolutely everything that she wanted to know. To use a statement she has said, my candor with her at the time allowed us to build a bedrock to build upon, even though neither one of us were looking for it at the time. Because I have to point out that when her and I started talking, like, I didn't plan for her to be my fiance, and she didn't want to date me. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Was this for you when you say you told her everything? Had the tone changed? Like, was it no longer like the sarcastic, like, I'm a junkie, like you talked about earlier, or was it more honest about your situation for what it was?
It was like absolute honesty. Like, I don't know what it was that made him feel like that was okay, but I don't think that you can truly grow with someone, and I don't think you can heal yourself, or, as we learned in some recent work we did, correctly like file your inner dialogue until you have been like honest, not just with yourself, but with someone else. So I think for both of us, yeah, it was something to build on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was, and it did something that no other person had caused me to do. So I got released from there February 4th. And I stayed sober for 5 days, which those of you listening to this might laugh or snicker. Ooh, 5 days. Like, it might as well have been 10 years at the time in my life, like, for me to stay sober for 5 days. Except for the fact that I didn't change anything else about my life. I just quit doing drugs. And so I relapsed 5 days later. Dara and I had hung out a little bit in between when I was sober that period, and I told her, well, I'm back to my side of the fence. You stay on your side of the fence. You don't belong over here. Bye. And she said something to me that at first hurt my feelings and made me mad, to be honest. She said that I don't like that you do drugs, but I like you. But that's not you. Yeah.
What I told him was, I said, I don't like that you do drugs, but that is not who you are, and I like who you are.
Which, this wasn't her intent, but it made me question, like, that she was telling me that I'm not a real person. And at that point in time in my life, I was like, being real was very, very important. Like, that is your whole, like, everybody in the streets, like, oh, I'm real. And so the fact that I felt like she was calling me make-believe, like that I was like a facade, like, it upset me. And here's why it upset me, because she was right. Because the decade I had just spent doing drugs wasn't who I truly was, but it is what I had been doing to try to fill a void or something. And I also want to include this. Dara is sapiosexual, which means she's attracted to intelligence. Okay. And so because of that, when I used, I wasn't the same person. And so it caused me to attempt to control my use. I realized that in addiction or anything like that is an oxymoron, that's not something that can happen, that you can't control your use. Okay. I want you guys to know that for this brief period, I did. I controlled my use because I didn't want to be around her when I was high, because I wanted to communicate with her on the level that we had been. And so I didn't use before I saw her, which caused me to cut my use down. But it didn't keep me out of jail. I went back to jail February 14th, actually. Tara and I went on a date for Valentine's Day for me to go to jail. And this is important because it's the only time I ever bonded out of jail. I called my mom and she wouldn't do it. I called my sisters, they wouldn't do it. There's nobody in my family that would willingly sign on the line to bond me out because it was too big of a risk. They didn't know what I would do. But Dara agreed to it. I paid the bond myself, but she was held accountable for the remainder of the bond if I didn't go to court. Um, and after that was done, when I got released from jail and I rode in the car with her, I asked her, I was like, you understand that if I don't go to court, that you owe $5,000? And she said, yes, but you'll go. And I don't know if I can mimic her tone or the feeling with it for you guys to understand, but it wasn't threatening or authoritative tone. It was belief. It was trust that I wouldn't screw her over. And it blew my mind because I came from a street life where everybody wanted something for something. So what did she want? And on top of that, I also have to preface this that when Dara and I first started dating, if you will, she thought that I was, first of all, poor, like didn't have any money. And second of all, that I was homeless. Like I truly was homeless. I always joke around that it was the adopt a felon program because, so after that, I went back to jail. Okay. I got released the 14th. I went back the 21st. And then the 21st was the last time that I was in jail. And this was of 2019. And
now,
so
Tomy, tell me, like you're talking about, like you're in jail every 2 weeks. Like, what was putting you back in jail?
Drug tests.
Yeah, drug tests. Not showing up for probation appointments, being late to probation appointments. Like I was going to get to that in this part. So what she had done, what my probation officer had done, is collected any probation infraction that I possibly could have accumulated with the intent of revoking my probation. She was building a case. And so she had to put me in jail every time to show that there was a probation infraction. And so I got sent back to jail February 21st. And then I thought I was going to spend the rest of my bit incarcerated. And so I told Dara, I was like, hey, like you are too incredible to be by yourself. Don't wait for me. And what did you say?
I said, I'll be here.
Yeah, like I told her not to wait for me and she told me, no, I'm waiting. Which was crazy to me because if you've never been incarcerated, it's Groundhog's Day. It's a timeless echo of the same damn thing every day. And so for me to expect somebody, anybody, especially somebody of Dara's caliber, to wait, to put their life on hold because I was incapable of making wise decisions as an adult to stay out of here is crazy. But she wouldn't listen to me. And we got lucky because I got transferred back to Lake County where I started this whole thing at.
He never mentions this, but so a lot of times people, and this is a very small jail, right? So there's nobody else in a wheelchair there. So he was in isolation a good portion of his time because they were, said, oh, he might use his wheelchair as a weapon or someone else might attack him, blah, blah, blah.
I was in isolation for the safety of myself and others is what they told me when I asked. But I got put back in the same isolation cell. And I'm going to throw this part in there to not be boastful or anything, but I want you to understand how the community viewed me at the time. I got sent back to Lake County and my bond was $500,000. I had a higher bond than people that were in there being investigated for murder. That is what Lake County viewed of me, that I was literally the sole reason that drugs and all this other stuff happened. And so my attorney tells me, he's like, all right, we're going to try to work a deal. And we're going to convince the court that you do drugs because you have PTSD. And I told him to his face, I was like, I don't do drugs because I have PTSD. I do drugs because I like them. And he said, cool, don't say that in court. I
laughed because I was thinking that. I'm sure I was like, the lawyer's going to say anything but that. And yeah, go ahead.
There was a ton of times in court. He would tell me, here's what I need you to do, Tomy. Shut up. That's all I need you to do when we're in court. But I did say it in court because I believe it. I didn't do drugs because I had PTSD. I did drugs because I enjoy being high. And so to try to say it was because of PTSD removes any sort of personal accountability. However, I wasn't going to take this opportunity and tell it bye. So I accepted it. But here was a problem. I had to find somebody that would allow me to live in their home until I went to treatment, or until I went to this PTSD treatment in Cincinnati. My mom wouldn't, my siblings wouldn't, nobody would. And I didn't want to ask her, but the night before, Dara and I had a conversation, and I made a promise to her. I had what I call an honest encounter with reality. I looked in my stainless steel mirror when I went to brush my teeth, and I really looked at myself. And if you guys remember in the beginning of the podcast, I said when I went to jail that I was scared that I wouldn't be capable of surviving in that world. But now I had, and I wasn't happy with the direction that it was taking me. I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't know how to do anything else. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do it anymore. So when I talked to Dara next, I told her that when I get out, if I get out, that I will never put meth or my old lifestyle above you, ever. And she said, yeah, okay. Did you believe me when I said it?
I really wanted to.
Had he said anything like that before?
No, and I had relationships where substances were often and almost always chosen over me for the last, for all of my life, actually.
Yeah.
So I really, really wanted to believe him, and I tried to have as much belief in him as I could about that.
And when I said the statement, I didn't believe I wasn't sure if I could uphold it.
Yeah. But what was it? Why were you saying this now at this point?
Because she'd stuck her neck out for me too far, too many times. Like, it didn't make sense to me. It still didn't. And then the next part didn't make sense either. But if a woman was willing to go through these trials and tribulations with me, then she deserved me to try to be the best I could for her. Okay? And so I get the opportunity. It comes up in conversation that I need somewhere to go to get out of jail. And she says, well, you can come here. I was like, no, that's not okay. Nobody knew that we were hanging out before that. Like, I don't want people to judge you because you're around me or anything like that. And she didn't care. And so she spoke to my attorney and got me released to her care. And this is the two most important things that happened after that. One, my loyalty had me confused. I was loyal to people that I didn't need to be. I was loyal to acquaintances from the street, and it put me into a situation where I should have been at home and I wasn't. And I get a text from Dara at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And she said, hey, I don't know where you are, but I'll come get you if you need a ride. And I want you to know that I have dinner here ready for you when you get home. And so I looked at my phone and I looked around the house I was in, and you got people doing meth in the corner, flailing around and like other stuff. And I looked at my phone and I looked around and I thought, what am I doing? And I went home. And then probably the craziest thing is when my ex-girlfriend got out of jail, it messed my head up. I thought I was completely done with her. She got out of jail, and I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. If I wanted to go back to her, if I wanted to stay with Dara. And I told Dara that and was extremely open with her about it. And she gave me the space to figure out what I wanted. And I want to highlight this. This is the whole reason I wanted to bring this up. The woman sitting next to me, Dara, without her love, her authentic belief and trust that I could be anything else, that she saw something else in me, I wouldn't have changed. Like, she loved me and she saw something greater in me, which in turn reignited a flame that I had let die out long ago. And it made me want to be better. And here's the weird part, not for me. I said this to her when I had proposed to her. She makes me want to be better every single day, but not because I want to be better, but because the caliber of woman that she is deserves me to be better. She deserves me to constantly grow. Okay. And I say that because I guarantee you, anybody listening to this, if you have a girlfriend, a wife, a fiance, they probably deserve that as well. please take the time to make yourself be the best you can, and encourage your spouse to be as well. Because without Dara, after I got out of jail, I decided that I needed to replace this feeling that I was finding from drugs. So I pursued it, and I found it in a weird spot, running, or my version of it. I've competed in 11 half marathons and 2 full marathons in a wheelchair, and I'm currently training for an Ironman. Okay, and I want to remind all of you that I'm a triple amputee. All right, so these things shouldn't be quote unquote in my realm of capability. But they are, because I believe they are. But that belief started in somebody else that believed I was capable. I overcome my drug addiction because she believed I could. And I believe I can overcome anything else now because of that. And since then, that belief in each other has helped us grow. Like, I work for Mission 60, like we said in the beginning, as a leadership consultant. My growth is what made Jason want to have me come back. I'm going to school to be an auctioneer to try to help veteranpreneurs with Warrior Rising. Once again, something I didn't think that I should do. We went to a fundraiser, and the auctioneer, I felt, left some money out on the floor that Warrior Rising could have taken home. And so Dara told me to go do it. And I was like, what? Why would I be an auctioneer? It's nonsense. And I looked into it more, and guess what? She was right. I should be an auctioneer. And I'm traveling to auctioneer college this afternoon, but all because she believed that I could do it. All because she loved me, and it wasn't impingent on anything. She loved me and gave me space to grow, like a plant.
Yeah, man, and it's beautiful, and that's like right for those listening. Like, that's why we landed here with both you guys, because when you and I first had our intro call, you're like, my story is nothing without Dara, and it's been beautiful. Like talking to you guys since the first time. Like, I can see how much you love her and she loves you, and I was like, that's why I was like, yeah, man, definitely, because that's the beauty of it. And it's like, it is special that to find these life partners in it, like not just tag-alongs, but like people that side with your potential, right? Like that keep you accountable to your potential, right? Because that's what we want. We want people in our lives that are pushing us, because we need it. Like, relying on self-discipline alone is a tall order sometimes, but to have someone in your corner that you can, at these, I'll say, peaks and valleys, and when you're falling into that valley, that someone can just kind of like help, right, and step in and go, hey, I got you, and so that you can then pivot. And so I you guys' story is awesome. Like, Dara, how have you changed? How has, Tommy's talked about how much he's changed because of you. How have you changed since your time with Tomy?
I have changed so much since my time with Tomy. I think, and I don't know if change is the right word, because I feel like I've come back to myself. I feel like I spent a lot of years just trying to survive with, provide for my kids and survive, and that he's helped me realize who I am and what I'm passionate about. And a lot of his traits that I really love are starting to rub off on me. For example, you could probably tell that he's a visitor. And I am naturally pretty shy. And we have had the most deep, meaningful conversations with strangers in the weirdest of places, all because of him. And it's just, he's really made me more adventurous and just grateful for every day. And it's hard not to be inspired just living with him too. I mean, he can do anything. And he's reminded me to just that absolute honesty is really the key for connection. And because he was originally the first one that took the leap and was like, you know what, I'm just going to throw it all out there. And
which was terrifying. It was terrifying.
Well, but then that's allowed me to throw it all out there too. And I feel like I really, not only do I have my person, someone that believes in me as much as I believe in him, but I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know how to articulate really how much being honest has been able to create this connection for us. And it's changed so many people's lives around us, just like him sharing about his drug addiction. He's done at different, like, for example, we went to the Other Side Academy in Salt Lake City, which is an alternative recovery center. It's very interesting. If you guys should go look it up. But, his honesty with everyone there, it was so wonderful just to hear the response that he got back and how that helps change other people's lives and perspectives. And so just going through life, being willing to talk about things that other people might think are uncomfortable has been life-changing for me in the best way possible, because it inspires positive growth, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my tenants, for example, and I'll help articulate this, is like one of my principles is establishing clarity. And when I talk about it, I go, one of the aspects of clarity is truth, right? You can't work with misinformation or half truths, right? Like, we can only establish true clarity. Talk about like growth. Well, we can't grow to where our potential is if we aren't honest with ourselves, even of where we are right now, right? You remember back in the day, like, you go to the mall and it's like, you are here and you're trying to find like the toy store or whatever, right? Like, you're not going to find the toy store if you don't know where you are. So, and I think like that, and I think, again, maybe just to help you out with that, like, I think that's where my wife and I, Jody, are like, we're completely on, like, because there's the trust factor, right? Like, if I tell people all the time, like, I can't fool with somebody that I got to question the words coming out of their mouth, period. I don't even want to waste a breath in that conversation if I have to think twice about the words coming out of your mouth, of being true or not, right? You understand? So, like, certainly in a relationship, like, there's no, like, you can only have that complete trust and honesty so that you can have that baseline and continue to grow, because it's so important, right? I mean, just trust is so important. I don't know if that helps you at all, but that's what I've come to learn for sure.
No, I agree. I view it as this way. It's hard to diagnose a problem if it can't tell you what's wrong. Like, if you go try to find out, like, oh, my car is making a noise, like, your car doesn't like try to move the noise or be like, oh, it's just my door squeaking. Like, no, it's the serpentine though. And so you know what I'm saying? Like, and so if you try to enter into the same thing with anybody else and you're like, hey, what's wrong? And they're like, oh, my door's squeaking. And you're like, wait a second, that's not where the sound's coming from. Like, it's so if you view it as like that, if you're trying to come to the root of a problem with in the most logical way, like, having any barriers in the way of communication, you can't diagnose it correctly. Like, I can only imagine how much harder doing combat life-saving stuff in combat would have been if I come running up to the guy and I'm like, hey, where are you hurt at? He's like, I'm fine. You should already know what's wrong. Like, right. No, and so but opening that immediate communication, like, it made it so much easier. But I trust in the fact that I can tell her whatever, and it's not going to make her change how she loves me. Like, that is super, like, it is, because I don't think I've had that with other relationships with people where I was afraid to be 100% authentic, to truly talk about things that bothered me, because it might change how they view their view of me. But with her, I've told her things that nobody else knows about me, beliefs or things that I've had, because I don't think that she's gonna, like, I could say whatever I want. This is a prime example. The other day I got mad at her because she kept telling me sorry. Okay. She was unnecessarily apologizing for things that didn't need to be apologized for. And then she's like, babe, what's wrong? You seem tense today. And I was like, no, you're annoying me. You keep saying sorry every time. Which I probably could have said it better now that I'm thinking back on it. But she understood that I wasn't trying to say it to be mean or spiteful or anything like that. She asked me a question. I gave her an answer. We discussed it. We moved forward. I don't think I've ever been able to have that with anybody else where I'm like, no, this action is bothering me. And they're like, well, I'm doing that. Like, she's like, oh, okay. Like, but the communication was there because I was blunt. Like, babe, is something wrong? Nothing. Like, now the rest of the day I'm mad and she's still saying sorry about things that she shouldn't be apologizing about. We didn't get anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's good to keep that just line of communication open because I guess back to maybe what Dara was trying to say, it also creates that safe space where you can feel like you can be authentic and be yourself because you're in an environment that's genuine. Like you're in an authentic environment, right? So you can, trust that you can be yourself without that judgment or whatever. So, well, man, I've had you guys a long time. So what's Tomy? What are you telling people? If someone says, "Hey, what do I got to do?" To be successful. What's the lesson you're preaching that you've learned?
Um, to be successful, you have to figure out where you are and where you want to go. You also have to understand that there is no easy route to that. And that if you deliberately choose things that are hard first, it will make your life innately easier. If you choose easy things first, it will make your life innately harder. Run headfirst up hills in search of growth.
I
love it, man. Dara, how about you?
I was going to say, those are my sentiments exactly. We talk about this a lot. We talk about it a lot. So please take that as a joint answer.
Yeah, man. No, I love it. So how can people find you guys online? Any preferred mediums or socials that people, if they want to get into contact with you guys or
They can go, we have a Facebook page called Adventures with King Kong, and that's more of just like Tomy likes to record his thoughts on there. We do some fun pictures of just what our life is. And then we're both on LinkedIn. Tomy's is Thomas Parker and mine is Dara Rodda.
Cool. And that was Facebook. It's Adventures with King Kong.
Correct.
Yes, is a group thing. King Kong is a nickname that I picked up when I was a drug addict. I spent a long time without a wheelchair, and so when I crawled around on the ground, I looked like a gorilla. And so that's where that came from.
Right on, man. Well, look, I appreciate all the time and you guys coming on and sharing your story, man. It's like I say, it's beautiful, and I love how you guys have grown together and kind of shown the power of love for one another and partner with each other's potential. And I got a ton of respect for you guys, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch and learning more about what you guys are doing with Warrior Rising and the like. So I appreciate you guys for coming on.
Thank you,
Dale.
Yeah, thank you for having us and giving us the opportunity to tell our story. Apparently, we wanted to talk at the same time.
No, yeah, good to go. Well, I appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you real soon.
Bye.